Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the channel if you're new. We talk about all things fandom on this channel, and we talk about them in a positive way. If that's something that appeals to you, you know you've come to the right place. And today is Thursday on this channel, and today we're going to be talking about the new Superman movie. I actually saw it, and now I'm going to give you my non-spoiler review, my thoughts on the whole thing, so let's jump right into it. Okay, so when it comes to Superman, I've been very adamant about saying that I like a shinier, happier Superman. And this movie delivers on that very well. I have no problem with Henry Cavill as Superman. I've made that abundantly clear on this channel too. It's okay to be a Snyder fan and to still like the other movie. And this movie is amazing. It's a throwback to the old Christopher Reeve stuff. They really did try to make Clark Kent, for the short time that they show Clark Kent anyway, look like the Christopher Reeve version of Clark Kent. He's sort of bumbling, he's a little bit out there, but he's also in a relationship with Lois Lane. So he has that going for him in this movie because he's been Superman for a while. Now, the movie actually throws us right into the action. There is an opening crawl that explains all the stuff that you really need to know to get started on the movie. I don't mind when movies do that, especially if it means I don't have to get another origin story. Now, this movie also has a great cast. Everyone in the cast was pretty awesome. There are a couple that I was a little bit disappointed in, but we'll get to them. We have to look at this cast, and I'm going to tell you what I liked about the cast and what I didn't. Now, first off, David Corenswet was everything I wanted Superman to be. The shinier, happier Superman that didn't have to resort to using a sort of angry vibe all the time. And we were actually given his most angry moments in the trailer. And that doesn't reflect on Superman because in the movie you have more context to what's going on in those moments. And it kind of does present him as more human. It presents him in a way that, yes, this is Superman who's been living among the humans, cares about the humans, and actually wants to do what's best for them. And if that means he has to get into arguments with some people like the heads of state or Lois Lane or anything like that, then he's more likely to do that. Now, he argues with Lois Lane in the trailer for a reason, and that tells us that he would argue with a head of state. He would argue with someone over what he believes is right. And I find nothing wrong with that in a Superman. Lois Lane is amazing in this movie. The actress who plays her is brilliant. She does a good job. She's not my favorite Lois Lane of all time. For the time that it shows her, and she's not in a big chunk of the film. She's in enough of the film to make an impact because Lois Lane is Superman's love interest. And for that reason, she deserves to hold the spotlight as well for a little bit of the movie. And they do it at just the right amount of time. So then you have Lex Luthor. And this Lex Luthor is both a little arrogant, comical, and yet he is always the most serious and scary guy in the room. He may be one of the better Lex Luthors we've seen in a long time. And the reason is that he is a complete and utterly scary guy anytime it shows him. And yet he can flip that on a dime and sort of make a joke or a pun that comes across as a bit out there. And his facial expressions are pure Lex Luthor insanity. This is Lex Luthor from the comic books brought to life. Then you also have the Justice Gang. And let's talk about the Justice Gang for a minute, because a lot of people thought they were going to play a much bigger part in the movie, and they don't. They don't play a much bigger part in the movie. In fact, there is a scene later on in the movie that I can't really disclose to you without spoilers, but there is a scene where basically it is Superman having to make a choice. And it's something that if he didn't have the Justice Gang, his choice would have been harder. And you can make the argument that Superman making tough choices is great. And in fact, he kind of has to make a tough choice here, but he also has the Justice Gang to help him. That's kind of what's really cool. They work together in the movie. So at no point does the Justice Gang overshadow him. We get to meet them early on in the movie. We get to kind of start to see them a little bit throughout the movie. They are in the movie. They just honestly do not play a big, huge part in the movie. So, for all the people thinking that they do, you're wrong. However, they do all have their moments of fun in the sun, if you will. Mr. Terrific has probably the best fight scene. And of course, when you get Guy Gardner flipping over tanks and everything else, as we saw him do in the trailer, that's a little bit of his moment in the sun. And it shows you that, hey, they're not taking this character as a complete and utter joke. Although they do make a joke about his haircut. They do sort of have some humor in there, but it's the humor you would expect. It's the humor that comes from comic books in general, right? But here's the thing. Hawkgirl probably has the least to do in the movie. However, she is also given her one moment to shine. I can't really tell you about that moment, but it's actually one of my favorite moments in the movie. Now, here is the other thing. Miss Tessmacher is in there, and of course, she is completely over the top. Jimmy Olsen is in there. Jimmy Olsen is, well, he's a modern Jimmy Olsen. I would have rather have seen him more like the comics, but I was there for it. I really was there for it. I thought that the modernization of Jimmy Olsen was a good thing. And then you have Otis. Otis was not in the movie for very long at all. I really could have used more Otis. That's one of my major complaints about the movie, is that Otis wasn't in it that much. Now, here's another thing. You have Ultraman and the Engineer. Ultraman and Engineer are in the movie for a good chunk. They are part of that enemy gang that's fighting Superman. They really are. And the entire story makes a lot of sense when you're looking at it. It doesn't spell out everything for you, and that's something I enjoyed also. Like, I don't need to know how the Engineer came to work for Lex Luthor because it's given to us in dialogue. I don't need to know how the Ultraman character comes into play because it's mentioned in dialogue. I don't need to know how long Lex Luthor has been after Superman. It's been a while. I don't need to know how long Clark Kent and Lois Lane have been in a relationship. That is actually told to us in the movie. Every little thing that you want to know about why the characters are behaving the way they are, how they came about, what causes this character to interact with this character, it's all in the movie. And this movie is so action-packed. You're going to hear some people say that it's too action-packed. I don't think that a movie could be too action-packed. I actually love that the movie doesn't feel like 2 hours. You don't feel like you're sitting there 2 hours. It moves very quick. It moves at a breakneck pace sometimes, and I found that to be really fun. It has just enough humor with Krypto, who absolutely steals every scene he's in, rightly so, because he's an animal, and he is an animal that acts just like my little dog, Miko. If Miko had superpowers, that would be Krypto right there. And I know this. I have no question that that would be Miko if he had superpowers. And that's what makes it funny. Anybody who has a dog with a lot of energy knows exactly how that dog would be if it had superpowers. And they played with that character just enough to make that character interesting without actually making it over the top where it's like, the scenes you've seen, they're the most extreme. Everything else where Krypto is in it, he's in it for a reason. He's in it to farther the story. And everything that's done in this movie farthers the story. And that's what makes it fun. That's what makes it good. I never felt like this movie was supposed to take itself 1,000% serious. It really is a comic book movie come to life in all the best ways. Now, There are some things I didn't like about it. There's something that they do with Superman's history that I really didn't care for at all. But then again, I know what is going on currently in the comic books with some of the characters that are involved in that part of Superman's history. And if you know when you see the movie, you know what I'm talking about. However, if you don't, well, yeah, it's not that big of a deal. If they're doing a more modern take on Superman, you alter the history of Superman to actually make it fit with everything else. And that's kind of one of the things I wish they hadn't done here. It just kept it classic Superman lore. However, I'm not too sad about it. And plus, it would be something that would fit with this current format of Superman. It actually makes it work so much better, I think, in the long run. After having some time to think about it after seeing the movie, it's something that, while I initially wish it wasn't there, I also don't have a problem with it being there. And that's kind of anything with this movie, with any of the characters that you could say aren't like they are in the comic books. I actually think they're very much comic book accurate. Sure, they have a bit more of a movie vibe to them, which means they're going to change the characters up somewhat. Mr. Terrific is not 1,000% like he is in the comics. Hawk Girl is not 1,000% like she is in the comics. Guy Gardner is almost exactly like I would picture him to be from the comics. However, you know, they do have that movie flair. They have that movie vibe that allows them to be part of the story and allows them to actually enter and make sure everything's okay. Metamorpho is great in this movie as well. I forgot to mention him earlier. He plays a huge part in the movie, but he's not in a lot of the movie. And that's something to realize too. No character overtakes or overshadows Superman. Superman is at the center of this movie. So I think that's the most important takeaway here. The movie's action-packed. It feels like a comic book. Superman is the main star of the movie. The actors and characters are great. The comedy in the movie is just enough comedy. The drama in the movie at times is enough drama. I don't want it heavy in drama if I'm watching a comic book movie, so I didn't have a problem with that. And the action is great. So overall, I give this movie 4.5 stars. It doesn't get 5 because it's not as good as the classic Superman movie. However, it is still a very good mix of comedy, action, and comic book fun. So for those reasons, I do rate it higher. I give it the 4.5 stars and do recommend that you guys check it out. But I definitely want to hear from you guys. I want to know what you guys are thinking. Leave me a comment in the comment box below. Just keep it spoiler free. We don't want spoilers on a non-spoiler video. And then share this video with all of your friends. They're going to want to be a part of this crazy conversation as well. Then make sure that you are hitting that like button. It's free. It helps the channel and we really appreciate it. Then friends, make sure that you are hitting that subscribe button. And while you're there, hit that notification bell as well so you don't miss a single video we do. Because you know it and I know it, fandom is family.